Washington Football Maniacs.
So the season has not really been happening the way that we had all hoped it would. Of course, things started off kind of shaky in really training camp and preseason with Terry McLaurin holding out the whole time. And of course, he comes back, doesn't really add a whole lot to the games that he played in, but then, of course, gets hurt after a big play against the Raiders, and then he's been out. Now he's going to miss his fourth game of the season, 4 games in a row. Uh, Before that, in his entire career, he has missed like 3 games. So that's something to kind of chew on. And then, of course, Austin Eckler gets hurt at the beginning of the season, something that wasn't expected. He's out for the rest of the season with a torn Achilles. Noah Brown has been hurt, has not. I don't know if I don't think Noah Brown has played at all this season. If he has, it was for a very short while, but Noah Brown out. And then Will Harris on the defensive side. Of course, he breaks his leg. We didn't realize, honestly, how good Will Harris was, how he really kept that secondary together. And he was basically like a quarterback of the secondary. I mean, getting guys in place, communication, things like that. You could tell a difference after Harris was out for sure. So that was actually a pretty big loss that a lot of people don't really talk about. And of course, Debo Samuel has had a history of injuries, and he may even miss. He doesn't sound like someone who's going to play on Sunday. We will have to wait and see. 9 times out of 10, honestly, that means I'm not playing, really. So hopefully he does. But, he played hurt against the Bears last Monday night, and he wasn't really a factor. And so Debo Samuel, who had really been the main target for the quarterbacks, having to pick up the slack from Terry McLaurin being out, he may be out. And so you really start to look at this coaching staff. And you have to say, now, there have been a lot of complaints. Don't get me wrong. There's been a lot of complaints about Joe Witt Jr. and the defense and the overall, we have a defensive minded head coach. We have our defensive coordinator who has worked with Dan Quinn. So you would expect if any unit should be solid, should be considered a top 5 unit, it should be the defense, but it's not. And the defense have had some struggles. They've had some good things, but they've also had some struggles. And there've been some breakdowns at times during the games when there shouldn't be breakdowns. I mean, how often have we heard this throughout the years? Seems like a broken record. But despite that, you also have to give this coaching staff some props as well, because look, they're 3-3 right now. They're 3-3 largely without their wide receiver 1, their wide receiver 3, and possibly the wide receiver 2. I think of Debo Samuel as wide receiver 2. So you're likely to have 3 of your top wide receivers out, and your number 1 wide receiver has been out for 3 games already. And so with all of that saying, the team is still 3-3. Should have probably beat, well, there's no probably to it. They should have beat Chicago. They basically gave that game away. And the Atlanta game was confusing to say the least. And the Packers game, they were just not ready for that game whatsoever. Those 2 losses there, it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, they got their butts kicked. This last loss, honestly, they shouldn't have lost that game, but neither here or there. They're still standing at 3-3. And so if you're looking at the glass half full, you're saying, you know what? This coaching staff has done what they could possibly do to keep things together, to keep things afloat, to keep the team at 500. despite the injuries to some very key players. Another key player, I don't know, did I mention Austin Eckler? Yeah, I think I did. But, some very key players out either for the season or out for an extended period of time. And yet the team is still in it. Other coaching staffs, honestly, being in the same situation would have had their team at 2-5 right now, assuming, I'm talking about like after tomorrow, you will have played 7 games, and it's a possibility that other coaching staffs 2-5 easily, especially the Ron Rivera era. It seemed like every year they started off like 2-4 and 2-5 and things like that before they finally got things going. And yeah, I mean, any other coaching staff, I feel like, that doesn't have a good plan, that doesn't have a good system in place that they truly believe in, would look as if they're folding up already, as looking as if, we're just going to evaluate our other players because this season is already heading south fast. But with Dan Quinn's coaching staff, Cliff Kingsbury, basically it's like, Cliff, here you go. And he's looking at that like, is that all you can give me? Okay, all right. And no offense against those players. I know that sounds bad. But you're no Terry McLaurin again, possibly no Deebo Samuel, Noah Brown. And so you got to make things work with the guys who are going to have to step up and going to have to play their best football, which means no turnovers. No turnovers. You got to play mistake-free football because you're not likely to score as many points as you normally probably would with these guys in there. And, Dallas's offense, they'll have deep CeeDee Lamb back. And so they're probably going to have a pretty good day on offense. Our defense is struggled. So you're going to have to really keep up with the Dallas Cowboys. And how do you do that? Well, number one, you start off fast. Number two, you don't turn the ball over. Those two things, if those two things are true, then you got a shot. But the thing is that Luke McCaffrey is going to have to continue to show improvement, and he's been great. Okay, it's great. Probably not the best to describe him, but I would say he's been great in terms of his continued development. And I think he's really going to turn into a fantastic player. But he's going to have to continue to step up. These other wide receivers, Chris Moore, he stepped up for a little bit against Chicago and then just after a while went away. We released Tay Martin and, Jalen Lane. He's going to have to continue to step up almost prematurely because, he's a rookie. You don't really expect him to have to be the main playmaker, but he's going to have to step up. Krosky Merritt, no fumbles. You're going to have to really protect that football, but you're going to have to really take over the game as well. Washington continues to need to focus on the run game, moving the ball down the field, time of possession, keep the Dallas's offense off the field. That's really going to be the name of the game if they expect to win this game. But I feel like overall, you have to commend this coaching staff overall. I know we've had some complaints, but at the same time, I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping things together. This is adversity. They didn't really face any adversity at all last year. Last year, it was all like the only adversity I felt like we really faced was, well, maybe outside of having, finally getting rid of Emmanuel Forbes and guys like that. But the only adversity we really faced last year was trying to find a field goal kicker. And I guess when it comes down to it, if that's the biggest adversity that you have, you're probably doing pretty good. And they did really good last year. So really no injuries, no major injuries last year to speak of. That's the reason why they went 12-5. Plus, not as hard of a schedule, obviously, as what we have this year. This year, you have a tougher schedule, and you've got injuries that keep mounting up to, some very key people. That's a lot to overcome. So, keeping this team at 500 has probably been a pretty good blessing. Should have been 4-2. And you think about that, you know, had there been no turnovers in the Chicago game, we would have been talking about a team that's 4-2 heading in to play Dallas. So I think the Skins are still in a good spot. They need to win this game, obviously, because then if you don't win this game, the conversation really starts to become a little bit more pessimistic because the hill starts to get a little bit, higher, steep, and I just there's not going to be games heading down the season where it's like not very many games that you're going to look at to be like, we should definitely win this game. Yeah, maybe we should definitely win against Miami, but you're going to have some tough games. You still have to play the Eagles twice. You're still going to have to play the Giants again, who's going to be much improved by the time that we play them. Still going to have to play Dallas one more time. So just those interdivision games like that are going to be big tests for Washington. So, but overall, we have to keep the faith. It's Dallas week, folks. So you got to get happy about something, right? It's Dallas week. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Just as always, try to keep it clean. And with that said, I will see you in the next one.